Now, your first business, Norm, was this courier business, was the messenger business. That's the one that you took to 100 million and then back to practically zero.
Right.
The second business is a record storage business. The way you built those two businesses were totally different. Describe for us, what did you learn from a business standpoint about what was important in terms of the way that you build a business?
Well, first of all, I'm a screamer, okay? That's the way my management style is. I yell and scream and get things done that way. And so in my first business that had 5,000 employees, I was hoarse a lot of the time. And I discovered that my wife came back to work with me. I told this story before. When I practiced law, my wife came in one day to fill in, to work with me, and the phone rang, and she said, so-and-so's on the phone. I said, tell him I'm not in. She says, I'm not lying for you. I said, either you tell him I'm not in or leave. She says, I'm leaving and never coming back. And she kept that promise for 20 years while she raised our kids. And then she said, I got to do something. I can't stay at home anymore. And I said, well, come back and work with me. She says, not on your life. Remember, never is never. And I convinced her to come back and work with me. And this is during the time we started the second business, and she brought the word culture into our business. And the second business that is successful and was greatly successful is because of the culture within our business ourselves. Give you an example. My top 5 employees have been with me since the day I've started that business. That business is 20 years old. The next 16 people have been with me for 16 years. Now, why did they stay is really the question. We built an unbelievable culture. Sometimes it had to do with money, and sometimes it didn't have to do with money. Our 401k match up until the disaster happened in this economy was 160%. We now cut it back to 80%, which is still beyond what most people give in today's thing. We do other things, too. We're an inner-city company. We buy movie tickets. In New York, it costs $12 to go to the movie. I'm sure it costs $10 or $11 here to go to the movie. We buy discounted tickets for $7 and sell them to our employees for $3, so a family of 4 can go to the movies for a person of 1. We run all sorts of games and contests. Remember I told you weight loss? I just lost 35 pounds. Really good. You can clap. It's good. How did I do that? So we brought Weight Watchers into the place. And we said if everybody comes to Weight Watchers, if they lose 3% of their body weight, the company will pay for it. I had to be a wise guy and said if anybody loses more percentage weight than me, I'll give them $500. I figured out 500 times 30 is 15 grand, so I went on this great diet and exercise thing and beat everybody. I gave the first place winner $500 anyway, but we do things like that don't cost money. My wife came up with this amaryllis growing contest. How many people know what an amaryllis plant is? Well, it's a plant that grows really tall and flowers spurt out. And I said, what are you going to give as prize? She says, I'm going to give certificates. The biggest amaryllis, the most flower amaryllis, the prettiest amaryllis. I said, sure. These people are going to grow flowers for certificates. She says, yeah, watch, it'll happen. And sure enough, she gave teams of 3. She gave out about 100 plants. And next week, I was in the accounting department. They named their account. They named their flowers. They were playing music to it. She said, see? I said, bean counters. What do they know? It's not going to work. So I walk in. Did I insult the accountants, too? That's 3. Keeping track? Huh? Okay, so I walked into the warehouse at night, and I see all these little lights on. And I couldn't figure it out. And I go up to them, and there's little flashlights on this amaryllis plant in the warehouse. And the next day, Danny, who's about 6'6", weighs about 280 pounds, I go up to him. I said, Danny, I couldn't help but notice there was a flashlights on your amaryllis plant. He says, yeah, boss, I read somewhere that if you give a flower good light, it's going to grow big. So they all got into it for these little certificates. So we built this unbelievable culture within our company. And that cut down on employee turnover. It cut down on absenteeism. I mean, it helped build the company to where it was today when we sold it.
But you also started to focus on different things. In other words, when you were building Perfect Courier, you were focusing on one thing. When you were building City Storage, you were focusing on something else.
Well, okay, so every day I woke up and went to work at Perfect Courier, my first company. One went from 0 to 120 to 0. And every morning I came and asked one question. Anybody want to guess what that question is? What's the question I asked? You don't count. Yes, sir. No, that's not a good question. Who? How much what? Well, that's a good question. You're good, but that wasn't the question yet. Don't forget, I'm a starting entrepreneur. You've been in business too long. How many people here are starting entrepreneurs? Yeah, what do you care about the most? Cash is close. You're close. Who said sales? Raise your hand. You said sales. Oh, well, you don't count either. Sales. How much in sales did we do? Every day I walked in, how much in sales did we do? That was the only question I asked. Wrong question. And somebody said it before, how much did we make? What were our gross margins? So remember, I took a company from 0 to $120 million to 0. I took this company that I sold for a fortune, and it was only doing $24 million in sales. But the bottom line was $10 million. So it has nothing to do with the amount of sales, and we get caught up in that thing. How much did we do in sales? It's how much did we do in profitable sales. I also learned along the way that numbers run the business. It's really important to know the numbers of the business. It's really important. Every Monday I get what I call Monday reports. Those are critical numbers within the business. They're real simple. In each business I get different numbers. I just sold 3 businesses, okay? And one business, like the archival retrieval business, the key number was how many new boxes did we add a week. There was a correlation between that and the amount of work we did. Amazing. It took me 3 or 4 years to discover that. In our shredding business, our key numbers, the number of bins we placed out, the number of tips we did. So there's key numbers in every business, and by getting those key numbers in the morning, every Monday morning from the week before, I could see trends developing. And what happens is accountants are great as historians. And you should have accountants. I don't want to make fun of them. But when you run a business, you need to know your numbers currently. Even if you're getting monthly reports, which come 10 or 15 days after the month ends, it's too late. You have to track your numbers. And you have to track those key numbers because that's what run the business.
Now, I know that one of the first times I interviewed you, Norm, you said to me, I was asking you about numbers and so forth, and you said, well, I'm a gross profit guy. And you focus, we write a lot in the Knack about gross margin, gross profit. Why exactly do you think gross profit is such an important number in a business?
Well, it gives you the ability to
Maybe you should define gross profit to begin with.
Okay,
so we're all talking about the same thing.
Does everybody know what gross profit is? Some people say no, some yes. So here it is, sales, what your sales are, minus your direct cost of sales. So if you were selling this pitcher of water, if you sold it for $5, you'd be a really great salesperson. And it costs you $2 to fill up the bucket. That means you'd have $3 worth of profit, gross profit, which means you'd have a 60% gross profit.
And the rest gets paid
Out of that gross profit get paid your G&A, your general administrative expenses. So what happens is, if you know what your gross margins are, it gives you a whole variety of things to do. Such as, if you want to hire a new salesperson, how much does it cost you? What do you need in sales to pay for that salesperson? Let's say you're going to pay that salesperson $50,000, right? So your gross margins are 40%. How much do you need they have to sell in sales just to break even, right? So I have to figure this out, but it's 2.5 times.
You basically divide.
It's 2.5 times. So you have to sell $125,000 worth of sales to make $50,000 just to pay for that salesperson. So if you know your gross margins, it's not a guess who you hire or when you hire them.